Today, we're not here to solve a mystery, we're here to understand one. We're going to deconstruct a single, powerful question that has, really haunted Thai politics for more than a decade. It's a question that gets right to the heart of a national trauma.
This is the question. Whether you read it in Thai or English, the weight of it is, well, it's undeniable. This exact accusation has been made in courtrooms, it's been shouted at political rallies, it's been debated endlessly online. For our purposes today, this is our starting point for understanding a very deep, very persistent national wound.
So let's be really clear about our goal here. This explainer isn't about giving you a simple yes or no answer. Honestly, the real story is in the question itself. We want to dig into why this question is still being asked, why it holds so much power so many years after the fact.
To do that, we kind of have to take the question apart, piece by piece. We need to understand the people involved, the place, and the timeline of events that created it in the first place.
Okay, so the central figure here is Abhisit Vejjajiva. At the time of the crisis, he was the Prime Minister of Thailand, and as the head of the government, he was the one with the ultimate authority, the person in charge of how the state responded to everything that was happening.
And the event at the heart of all this was the political unrest of 2010, or 2553 on the Thai calendar. Now, this wasn't just a simple protest. We're talking about huge, large-scale demonstrations right in the center of Bangkok, led by the Red Shirts movement. They essentially brought the commercial and government hub of the entire country to a standstill for weeks on end.
And as you can see from this timeline, things escalated, and they escalated dramatically. What kicked off as mass protests in March saw negotiations completely fall apart, and by April, the first deadly clashes had broken out. This all led to a full-scale military operation in May to clear the protest sites, which finally ended when the protest leaders surrendered.
The result of that final crackdown was a staggering human cost. More than 90 people were killed, hundreds more were injured, and this number, it includes unarmed civilians, protesters, soldiers, police officers, journalists. It's this tragic loss of life that lies at the absolute core of the question we're looking at today.
And that loss of life, well, it brings us directly to the most contentious, most debated part of this entire story: the government's order to disperse the protests. Was it a legitimate security operation, or was it an act of excessive force against its own citizens?
This table really captures the two, they're basically irreconcilable stories that came out of the crackdown. On one hand, you have the government's perspective. For them, this was a necessary action to restore law and order. They argued that live ammunition was only allowed for self-defense and to be used against armed militants they claimed were hiding within the protests. But then, on the other side, critics and the victims' families, they tell a totally different story. They argue that this order unleashed a completely disproportionate military response. They point to the use of snipers, the use of live rounds in areas with unarmed civilians, and they frame it as the state using lethal force against its own people. So the key thing to get here is that both sides look at the very same command and see two completely different realities.
And the conflict didn't just end when the streets were cleared in May 2010. Not at all. The debate over who was responsible, over what justice looks like, and just the truth of what happened, it has continued to fuel political division ever since. So why? Why does this one question just refuse to go away?
Well, there are a bunch of reasons, and they're all kind of tangled together. For one, the legal proceedings against officials, including Abhisit, have been a real mess, stalled for years, dismissed on technicalities, so they've never produced a clear verdict that satisfies everyone. The event also just poured gasoline on the fire of Thailand's deep political polarization. Each side uses the 2010 crisis as a core part of its identity, part of its list of grievances. And that leads to totally conflicting ideas of what justice even means. Is it about accountability for the deaths, or is it about upholding the authority of the state? At the end of the day, the whole event has become this lasting, incredibly painful symbol of national division.
And that really brings us back to the true weight of that question we started with. Because while it's framed around the actions of one person, the fact that it's still being asked reveals something so much deeper. It's about a nation's profound and ongoing struggle with its own memory, its search for accountability, and the incredibly difficult, painful path toward reconciliation. Which leaves us with one last, much broader question. And it's not just about one man or one event, but it's a challenge faced by countries all over the world. How does a society, how does any society, truly move forward when a shared understanding of its own painful past remains just out of reach?